The story of Dying Light 2 is attempting to take things a step further compared to its counterpart, with there being multiple story paths, choices, and ways to customize the world as your own. Depending on the faction you join, the story will trail in different directions as you assign different factions within each of the 7 districts of the city. How this will really make a big impact is left to be discovered ourselves. But now we have a better idea of the choices and consequences mechanic at play. There's quite a few characters you'll get to meet throughout, a good portion of them from what we've seen allowing you to talk with choices available. During many of the conversations you'll have, the game will stop anywhere from 10 to 30 seconds to give you a choice, and sometimes it won't be timed at all. While these choices may not always be pivotal to the overall story, each choice should have an impact in some way. Now, there's different types of choices you can make throughout. Through the city alignment system, you can assign many of the abandoned buildings in the city to a specific faction like I mentioned. Restoring old structures around the city brings along new gameplay changes, with this example showcasing the peacekeepers against the survivors. You get 2 rewards for each side, one of the rewards being here, the same either way, but the other reward is new tools that are installed around the city. In this case, the PKs bring in a bolt cannon and the survivors give you airbags. At the bottom, we can see many of the tools we can upgrade to over time, with the survivors leaning towards healing and safety, and the peacekeeper towards traps and weapons. A mini cutscene will commence after you choose either faction, in this case being the survivors. Then, after the building will become a safe zone you can continue to return to. Multiple of these abandoned buildings can be found throughout Villador, all giving you different tools and rewards to work with. Some of the choices you make throughout the game can have a huge impact, such as opening up a flooded city like we saw in 2019. We've also seen this windmill explosion which might be preventable, but there's also nothing really else too major that I can think of right now. And I don't think you'd want every major choice spoiled anyways. But, like the Drowner, which we saw in 2019 and haven't really seen since, there may be other special infected that we can bring along due to our choices. One, the lead game designer Timon Smektala mentioned, is the Revenant. Other than that, I don't think there's really any other big choices that I think are really worth talking about really, so that's where I'm gonna wrap this up for today. The future has a lot in store for us when it comes to this mechanic, so be sure to watch out for more videos diving even deeper into this all in the future. The future of gaming as a whole is something I've never really talked about on the channel before, as, you know, I talk about Dying Light and Dying Light 2 mainly, but I do believe Dying Light 2 is doing something really special here. I feel like games try too hard to be blockbuster movies these days with awkward cutscenes and just taking away the game from the game, but allowing you to go down your own path with your own choices is a huge level of freedom that doesn't come by very often. Yes, the idea of choices and consequences has been implemented a ton of times before in different games, but the way Techland is doing it here, I really hope allow for more developers to see this and try to do the same thing. Alana Pierce is a content creator that I've actually brought up on the channel before, and she actually went to the Dying Light 2 preview event as well. She recently did a podcast with a couple other YouTubers talking about Dying Light 2, not specifically, but in one small segment that I think is really worth listening to. So, I'm gonna leave the video here with that, and be sure to stop by next time, guys. See ya.
What I think they're starting to do is the beginning of something that I think a lot of video games are going to do in the long term, and I know that Ken Levine is working on, is the Lego building block kind of approach, in that the world is going to change based on what you do. And I don't know how extensively they're going to do it, but it seems like, you know, you side with this faction in a kind of wasteland way, there'll be more water available, and then the city will change and have more flowers around and that kind of thing. Where I genuinely think that's going to be the future of video games, that we are going to see things that are very, very specifically procedural. I've seen Ken's game, and maybe 3 years ago, and I didn't sign anything, but respectfully I'm not talking about it. But the way that, to speak around the way it functions and ties into his GDC talk that's public anyway, is very much about getting rid of set pieces in video games, getting rid of your songbird moment from BioShock, and adding in things that feel more impactful to the player individually, because it is an individual experience, something that not everyone will have, that we replay something and it will be completely different, that we can't all have the same experiences. And I'm really excited about that, because I do feel like now a lot of video games are gameplay with films in between, and I very much felt that way about Psychonauts 2, which I love, but it stops you to have cutscenes so often and to deliver little movies all the time. And I'm like, why are we not allowing the video game to be video game in our storytelling when we have such a cool medium that we could do so much cool shit with, instead of like having us stop to watch something? So I'm super excited about Dying Light 2 seemingly touching on that a little bit. I don't know how extensive it's going to go, but
there's so much potential with it though.